The March meeting of the Environmental Resources Committee to order. We are going to begin with item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Following the pledge, please stay standing for a silent moment of reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right, before we move on to item number 4, approval of February 4th, 2025. Before we move on to item number 3, public comment, 15-minute limit, I've got a few housekeeping things I want to go through. First thing I want to announce is that I am going to move item 6A3 of the agenda, which is the continued discussion on potential amendments to animal waste ordinance information gathering updates up to after item number 4, approval of the February 4, 2025 committee minutes. I want to do that just because we have so many people here that are interested in this topic today that have shown up, and I don't want to make people wait an hour plus to wait for us to address that item. Are there any objections from this committee for me doing so? Seeing and hearing none, that is the order of the day. Then, before we jump into public comment, I want to lay out the rules for everybody participating. So, I've got 7 people that are signed up to address item 6A3. First of all, I want to announce that this is not a item that will be up for decision making today. This is purely educational and up for committee discussion. So those of you that are here today expecting a final decision, that will not be today. That will likely be at a future meeting, but we are appreciative for everybody that shows up today that wants to provide their insight. Second thing I want to announce is that comments shall be addressed to the chair of this committee, which will be myself, pursuant to Robert's rules. And like I said, I, Jake Longenhan, am the chair of the Environmental Resources Committee. If you'd like to offer public comment today, all you have to do is approach the microphone at the back of the room. It should be on. State your name and just hold on one second. Is it name and municipality? Name and municipality. It doesn't have to be your full address. It can just be the municipality. If you want to offer your address, that's fine. That's not going to violate any of our rules. There are 7 people that are signed up for public comment. Given that we have a 15-minute limit total for public comment at a typical meeting, I'm going to be providing 2.5 minutes per person. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start a timer right after you introduce yourselves. You'll have 2.5 minutes to address us, and at about the 2-minute mark, I'll give you a 30-second warning so that way you can wrap up your thoughts there. So this is a meeting of the Environmental Resources Committee. We won't be taking any questions or discussion from the public today. This will just be one-sided under public comment to provide information to us before we enter our discussion. Last thing is that I ask that you all please be respectful of everyone, even if you do not agree with their opinions during the discussion today or during public comment. I understand that this is a contentious issue. There's probably going to be people in this committee you're not going to agree with. There might even be people in the audience that you do not agree with. You will be respectful of them. If I sense that there is some, I don't know what to call it, disruption being done in the audience, I will warn you once, after which, if you continue to be disruptive, you will be removed from this meeting. That being said, we are going to move on to item number 4, approval of the February 4, 2020, item number 3, public comment. So like I said, for the rules, you'll have 2.5 minutes to address the committee. I'll give you a warning at the 2-minute mark for finishing up your thoughts. And last thing I'll say is that if you are a member of the public and you want to just simply echo somebody else's thoughts that previously provided public comment, that's fine if you approach the microphone in the back of the room and say, hey, ditto to what someone previously just said. That's fine. If you want to provide testimony, if you want to provide comment, that's fine too. Nobody's going to limit you in that regard for the subject matter. Okay, so I have to ask a clarifying question here. Is Dean back in the room?
Yeah.
So Dean, you want to address, it just says Easton? What agenda?
It's about the spreading. And
6A3? Okay, so then you're up first, Dean. So if you want to approach the microphone at the back of the room, and then just give me a minute before I get started here.
okay, I'm Dean Beck, Town of Easton
Oh,
Chairman.
just give me one
Whoops,
second,
sorry.
please. You're good. All right, Dean, go ahead.
Okay, Dean Beck, Town of Easton Chairman, from Town of Easton. My main concern is with this manure storage, additional manure storage. We have large dairies already in our area. If we force the remainder of the dairy operations to store their manure, the impact that's going to be on our local roads in spring with the extra hauling when the roads are the most susceptible. That's probably not one piece of the puzzle that the county board looks at, but it's my job to keep the roads together. The large dairies by us, the main one is a very good, they go down the middle of the road, they follow all the rules, but it's just going to be that much more impact on our roads. With that, I do not want to have our small dairies go out of business. They're vital to our community. They're getting to be less and less, especially on the eastern side. I grew up around dairy, and I want to see something work out to make them be able to still stay in business. That's mainly what I just wanted to address, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I have Lionel Wisniewski. Lionel, if you want to approach the mic at the back of the room.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Lionel Wisniewski, Chairman of Town of Reedbrock, speaking on issue 6.3 Alpha with regard to the environmental waste and control measures. On 22 January, I conducted a meeting in our town consisting of our planning members, our town board, and the 5 largest dairy operations we had. Everyone approached that meeting with trepidation. Kirsty was a guest at that meeting. The intent was to have an open forum where we could discuss our views, discuss how we could work cooperatively, and yet acknowledge what was really happening. And I say again, every member approached it with trepidation. We all thought it was going to be some sort of an ambush from one party to another. So I'm here to say that I believe, having grown up in Marathon County, in western Marathon County, and recognizing that we are a dairy and ag community, yet being committed to conservation, we need to have strong methods of control. Strong fences make good neighbors. I'm not trying to eliminate anyone in the farming or ag community, but what I found, and we came away, and Kirsty will support this as well, we came away with solid cooperation from all the members. So dialogue is hugely important here. I believe we do need to have some metrics on what's going to be spread, validation of the acreage and the quantities, follow up on the cleanup. Of course, entering a field, leaving a field, there needs to be some grace for treads being cleared out onto the roads. But the good farmers are those that are going to clean up after themselves. And I would recommend some sort of a permitting process, not carte blanche, not without some sort of enforcement, but as a sliding scale. Initially, more checks, more stringent.
30 seconds.
Shorter period. But as demonstrated behavior is shown to provide cooperative and environmentally responsible actions, those permitting procedures would grow longer in term with fewer checks and balances. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
All right. Next up, I have James Gundenson. No, I have James Gunn.
Oh, Gunderson? Oh, my bad. I'll let you go first, and then I'll go. I thought the James name. See, nobody can pronounce my name right anymore.
Yes, I'm James Gunderson, and I'm a resident of Reet Brock in the town here in Marathon County. And the reason I'm here today is I'd like to discuss about the spreading of paper mill waste on our lands. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but this stuff stinks. You know the old song, the skunk in the middle of the road stinking to high heaven? Well, it has nothing on this paper mill stuff, believe you me. I have smelt stuff that is bad, and it is bad. And they've spread it to the east of me, to the south of me, and to the west of me. And we couldn't open our windows, anything like this, when it's been spread. It's been left on top of the ground. So daylight today, right, you still smell it. And especially when they pile it, which they had done across the road from me, and open that up, it really stinks. And I think that something should be done. I'd like to see it tested and have samples taken to see what's in it, maybe test the land and see what's going on with it. In the meantime, I have to put a new well in. My well is not good. The water is not good. So I have to put a new well in. Now, I don't know if this did it or not. We don't know, but I think a little suspicion it could be it. Also, I don't have a lot of water in my well. The people that owned the property to the west of me had 4,000 cattle there. When they sold out and left, I had water. Now we got cattle back there, and guess what, folks? I'm out of water. I hardly have enough to water my own livestock. We have to take our laundry to town to the laundromat. So I'd like to see something more about done of this paper mill sludge, because we don't know what's in it. And I'd like to have, some research done on it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you letting me talk.
All right, James Edis.
All right, thanks. Hopefully I can cut, I had it set up for 3 minutes, so hopefully I can. James Yedis, I'm from town of Easton, small dairy farmer out there. Dear Chairman and committee members, last month I received a letter in the mail from the Marathon County Planning and Zoning regarding a proposed winter manure spreading change that would outright ban any liquid or slurry type manure from all farms in the county for the months of February and March. Needless to say, I was taken by surprise. What was especially concerning to me was that this proposal was being proposed because of the concern over the phosphorus levels in the Bago Plain Reservoir. I must ask, why are farms that have absolutely nothing to do with this drainage area of the said reservoir being targeted under this proposal, and not just the farms in the concerned area to be worked with more on a concentrated level? If this proposal goes through, the cost to the small farmer to build storage units, even small ones, would be enormous, and some have even told me they would quit farming before they would install anything. Up to $250,000 for a temporary pit, the time and effort to haul and dump it in the pit rather than put it directly on the ground, the need to hire someone to haul it back out of the pit and spread it as present equipment is not sufficient to do the job. Getting this done in a timely manner in order for spring planting it done on time, and if having the pit is the answer, we have already done it already. Do you think we enjoy hauling out the manure in cold weather? This reservoir was constructed in a bad area in the first place in 1937. It was made in a low-flow area that drained from all agricultural land. Farmers originally pastured their cows and allowed them to access to the streams that fed the reservoir, and eventually started to house the cows and do more manure spreading with no knowledge of what the animal waste was doing to the water, as they were just trying to make a living. Over the decades, the phosphorus levels grew, and now it is what it is. We can either deal with it the best we can or go on blaming agriculture, which it seems the CPC is more than happy to do. Agriculture is not the whole problem with the reservoir. To me, how the reservoir is managed is the bigger problem. It was made to supplement the flow of the Wisconsin River in times of low water levels to help with power generation and river health. But now it has become a popular fishing and vacation spot.
30 seconds.
So the reservoir is not flushed enough to clean it out in order to enhance the fishery. Oxygenation system was installed. Phosphorus is not soluble in water, but when oxygen is forcibly mixed with phosphorus, it creates phosphorus ions, which are now readily available for plant growth and leads to excess algae growth. So we don't flush the system, oxygenate the water to save the fish. The small fish eat the algae that they can. The bigger fish eat the smaller fish, and the fish grow. People are happy to have nice fish to catch. But because the water is rich, they are upset that the water gets green in spots depending on weather conditions. But somehow
Finish up your statement.
All this bad stuff is the fault of agriculture, and no one else seems to bear any responsibilities for the problem. Thank you.
All right, next up I have Randy Wilkach.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I am Randy Wolkach. I farm in the town of Marathon near Memories Ballroom, 2 miles west of Mountain. I have a diversified farm including cash cropping, selling hay, cleaning and selling seed, and I rent out nearly 60 acres to Hmong farmers to grow organic vegetables. I also raise heifers for beef and have 30 to 60 throughout the year. The heifers complement the hay, seed, and vegetable aspects very well as the animals eat refuse and hay not fit to sell. The Hmong farmers all want the manure on their gardens as it is perfect for their organic methods, and they start early and they work late, so in the winter is the perfect time to do that. My manure comes out of my barn via a manure auger, which drops it into my flail spreader. This manure is not stackable after going through the auger, therefore I am included in the winter spreading ban being proposed. I have only one neighbor with a manure pit that is practically close, which I'm not sure would be feasible to use, but even if it was, he won't allow it. My home 80 acres and an adjacent 40 are as flat as the floor of this meeting room, and the soil is lighter and sandier, meaning water soaks in rather than running off. If the ground is frozen, the water ponds until it thaws. I have had a nutrient management plan for many years and followed it as best as I can. I see no concerns with winter spreading on my farm. I have no creeks or rivers near my home farm. I'm definitely not contributing to the problems of the Old Plain Reservoir. This manure ordinance proposal will end any possibility of me having animals if passed as currently written. I cannot afford a pit, and even if I could, I believe it to be a waste of money and resources. I see many alternatives to the proposed ordinance. I also think this targets small farms like me, even though it may not have been the intent. I don't like the one-size-fits-all approach, and I don't like the fact that all stakeholders and contributors to water quality issues aren't being considered in this proposal. February and March aren't magical months. Last year, January was likely a bigger concern, and March was ideal for spreading. For several
30
decades,
seconds.
farmers have been told to get a nutrient management plan to follow. It outlines sensitive areas. Why not require all farmers to have a plan? At least that would allow me to continue farming with animals when I'm not contributing to the problem in a substantive way anyway. Although I have seen plenty of data documenting water concerns in Old Plain and elsewhere, I haven't seen documentation of how this proposal will move the needle on improving water quality. Millions of dollars have already been spent on projects in western Marathon County that we were assured would work, but didn't.
Finish
My-
up your statement, please.
I've just got one more paragraph.
Yep. Well, one
My-
more sentence. We
My
gotta keep
prediction is if this proposal is passed as currently reads, millions of dollars will have been spent. Many small farms will have gotten forced out of the animal business and will have even more manure pits to abandon than we do now. And the water, it will have just as much phosphorus as it does now and will still be compromised. Please table this proposal until a workable and practical plan can be crafted that will yield the desired results. Thank
Okay.
you.
Patrick King.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Town and Committee. I am a dairy farmer in Township of Castle, just south of Edgar. Operate in Old Plain and Fenwood and Old Plain watersheds. Question that I have is at the last Wien Township meeting was brought up about using neighboring pits for storing manure in. So next week, Monday, weight limits go on. How do you get there? You can't legally go down the road with the manure spreader to get to them pits. Other question I had is that people had talked about sand-bedded manure, that mixing out of a clay line pit, if somebody did want to build one, is not a good avenue. Would they allow mixed liner pits? By mixed liner, it would be a concrete floor and a clay walls on them. Kind of keeps cost in check with it. That was all I had. Thank you for your time.
This one just says Kelly, but
Sorry. I'm going to give my time to Dwayne Toten.
go ahead, Kelly.
I'm going to give my time to Dwayne.
No, that's not part of the rules. I'm not going to allow gifting of time to other people.
felt I was a better speaker.
Are you signed up to speak, sir?
No.
I came late.
Okay, that's fine. I'll allow you to speak later, but I'm not
Okay,
going
then
to
I'll
give
pass.
time. I'm not going to allow people to stack time. Then we're
Okay,
going to be, yeah.
that's okay. Then I'll pass.
All right, sure. All right, so next up I have Kim Brenner, but it looks like it was crossed out. You're good? Okay. So then I have Kevin Jean Schmidtke. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is just 1 second, sir. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call one last time for anybody that wishes to speak. They'll have an opportunity at the end, okay? So after Kevin gets done, I'll call one more time, okay? All right, Kevin, go ahead.
Kevin Jean Schmidtke, Town of Day. Thank you, Chairman and Board. The biggest question I got is on the spreading, the research they've done, which, like I said at Wien meeting, appreciate it. The question is, are we checking anything else? What does the salt and the brine do? What does the paper mills do? The airport, we got the Marathon County landfill. It seems like we're, and I'm a small dairy farmer, it just seems like it's coming to pick on us, and we don't have all the research. They said that they researched just the manure part, so if the manure is 5% and the salt is 20%, you're still not solving any problems that everybody says they're here to solve. So I guess that's just my biggest thing is if we're doing the research and we got UW Stevens Point down the road that can do all the research, can we check everything before we just jump and say this is the problem? So, and then can I submit this to you guys? This is from Mike Sable. He couldn't make it today. I don't know how your
All right,
rules work.
So I'm going to hit pause on your time in case you have more, okay? So
Okay.
I'm going to ask staff a question. Did we get clarification?
Yeah, I
on
spoke
how
to
that
Corporation Counsel. He said that you could choose to receive the written comments for the committee.
works? Okay,
So-
so if you want to provide that to Kirsty right there, that
Okay.
would be fine.
Okay, I'm good because this is 4 pages, so we're not going to read it.
I have extra copies here, Jake.
Okay, sounds good. If anybody else would like to do that, that is the option for submitting written comments. I apologize, I didn't make that announcement at the beginning. I didn't have clarification from our attorney until just now, okay? So that is our last person that we have signed up, but like I said, I'm going to call one more time for anybody else that wishes to speak in the audience. I think we had this gentleman right here. So if you want to approach the mic at the back of the room and.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dwight Tolk, Athens. I'm a Marathon County Farm Bureau Director, and we heard from Kirsten and Matt at our last monthly meeting, and we formed
All right, I
a
got to hit pause. Sorry, what was your name? I'm sorry.
Dwight
Name and- Dwight?
Tolk. Yes,
Okay.
Dwight.
All right. Sorry, go ahead, Dwight. You're good.
Okay. We appreciate your recent presentation at the meeting and discussion that followed. We look forward to being actively engaged and working together to achieve favorable results. The Marathon County Farm Bureau recognizes the importance of protecting and improving water quality. We have passed resolutions supporting requirements for farmers to meet conservation standards without cost sharing, while exempting significant capital expenditures such as manure pits. Additionally, we support compliance with nutrient management plans, which include winter spreading on low-risk fields. At this time, however, we cannot support a countywide ordinance banning winter spreading and requiring storage. We believe the county has significantly underestimated the cost of manure storage construction and provided inaccurate information regarding available cost-sharing funds, making this impractical for many farmers. The plan also does not adequately involve all relevant stakeholders in phosphorus reduction efforts. So here we have some suggestions for further discussion. Of the 150 dairy farms without manure storage, only 22 currently have nutrient management plans, and we feel all should be included in this. This would ensure a reasonable requirement with cost-sharing funds. NMPs would include a winter spreading plan for low-risk fields, monitoring and compliance are essential. All ordinances should enforce NMP provisions. Faster implementation than the current proposal, which might take 3 to 5 years.
30 seconds.
Okay, I'll just sum up the back. Continually monitor phosphorus and BOD levels, and expand a working group to ensure success instead of relying solely on 8 county conservationists. And investigate the algae mitigation technology. So I'll skip the rest. Thank you.
Right on time. Thank you, sir. All right, does anybody else wish to speak under public comment?
My name is John Kennedy. I'm the Vice President of the Big Old Plains Citizens Organization. I'm entering my second decade of advocating.
Your municipality, please, sir.
I am not a resident of the Marathon County.
That's fine. Just state your.
Town of Loyal,
Perfect.
Clark County.
All right, you're good to go.
Okay. All right, I'm entering my second decade of advocating for the Big Old Plain. I don't own a property on the Old Plain. I'm kind of unique in that manner. I'm not speaking for my property values or anything else. I just have a 70-year family history of the Old Plain. I've been part of several studies. I heard the UWSP brought up. We worked with UWSP, many other partners. We did our lake management plan. We did an oxygen study on the Old Plain. We spent $100,000 plus on studying what's going on, what the problem is, and it all points to nutrient loading from runoff from the soil. Whether it's farms, whether it's anything else, that's the fact. We're not trying to pick on anybody. It just happens. The water turns green, the fish die. We spend a lot of money running an aerator down there to keep the fish alive during wintertime. The beaches get closed in the summertime because they're too green, too unsafe. And, it's not just the Old Plain. If you look at the satellite images, right about the time you get to Marathon County, in the middle of summer, everything turns green. You go to the north, the satellite images look much more blue. So that's my take on it. I think time has come. It's just common sense. If you went out there and spread manure on a field, and look what's coming, the January rains we get February rains, we get March rains, all those rains and the snow melt, all it does is mobilize that manure and takes it off the landscape. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak? Okay. I'll remind everybody, name, municipality. That's all I'm asking.
Ben Niffenegger, Town of Bergen. I'm the executive officer with Wisconsin Valley Improvement Company. So we own and manage the Big Old Plain Dam. It's one of 21 storage reservoirs that we manage as part of the Wisconsin River Headwaters Reservoir System. And the system is used to kind of balance all of the different benefits that the water resource provides downstream into the Wisconsin River. So water conservation, flood control, low flow augmentation, hydroelectric generation, fish and wildlife habitat, public recreation. And we have a long history of partnering with not just Marathon County, but other agencies and stakeholders to try to protect and preserve the watershed and the waters that enter into the Wisconsin River. And so with that, we fully support Marathon County's efforts to reduce phosphorus in the Old Plain watershed, whether that's by amendments to animal waste ordinances, vegetative buffers, or other means with proven ability to reduce phosphorus in the waterways. Out of all the reservoirs WVIC has going all the way up to the Lac Vieux des Airs at the UP-Wisconsin border, the Old Plain is by far the most studied reservoir we have in our system. And so it's pretty clear at this point. We all know the primary driver for the water quality issues, the fishery issues in the winter with depleted oxygen, the harmful algae blooms in the summer that impact health and recreation opportunities. It's all directly related to phosphorus running off the landscape. And so, simply put, liquid manure on frozen ground, regardless of what month it is, it really has nowhere else to go but to run off the landscape when the snow melts and the rain comes. And it goes directly into waterways that feed the Big Old Plain Reservoir, which then dumps into the Wisconsin River and then dumps into the Mississippi River before going down to the Gulf. So we support common sense ordinance revisions and programs to address phosphorus runoff issues and hope that the Environmental Resource Committee and the County Board take any steps necessary to address kind of the decades-old phosphorus issues on the Old Plain. Thank you.
All right. Another last call. Anybody wishing to speak under public comment, please identify yourself at this time. All right. I'm closing public comment then. Thank you to everybody from the public that provided their comments today. We appreciate it. So we're going to move on to item number 4, approval of the February 4, 2025 committee minutes. They were in your packets. A motion to approve would be in order. Motion by Supervisor Seefeld, second by, I had like 3 hands go up over here. Supervisor Schoenborn, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, like I said at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to move item 6A3 up to after item 4. So we are going to address continued discussion of potential amendments to animal waste ordinance, information gathering updates. So I think staff is going to have a report, and then we're going to proceed to committee discussion. So Kirsty and Matt, feel free to get started.
I'm going to just stand up here next to me. Did you start the slideshow? Okay. All right. Good afternoon. I know we have a lengthy agenda for today, so we won't take too long of your time. We have just a handful of slides for you this afternoon. First things first, we just wanted to fill you on a little tidbit of homework that you asked us to do after the last meeting, and then we'll follow this summary that we're providing to you with a few comments about some of the meetings that we've had since the last time we saw you as well. So one thing you asked us to check out at the last committee meeting was to calculate about how many gallons we would need in potential storage if we even were to essentially, consider it part of the conversation to have some farms consider renting nearby storage as well. And so we knew going into calculating the data that it would probably be more of a rarity than a common occurrence for a farm to be able to rent nearby storage. But since we were working together to find as many out-of-the-box ideas that we could find, as well as cost-effective ideas for manure storage, this was one thing that we had on the table. So we worked hard to collect data. There is a lot of manure storage in Marathon County, so this was a big lift. So I really just want to thank the conservation staff that worked on putting this together. It took 8 people to pull these numbers together and to do the research regarding a lot of manure storages in Marathon County in just a couple of weeks. So the first bullet point you've seen before, this was in a previous presentation, we had calculated that if we're looking at the volume of manure for 2 months, February and March, for just daily haul farms, meaning these are not the farms that are spreading manure in Marathon County. There are other farms that are also spreading manure that are not daily haul farms, but we just quantified the daily haul farms that have no storage. So that would be a little over 9 million gallons of manure. That is an estimate. So that's a number you've seen before. And then we identified previously 94 potential idle manure storages. And after researching each one of them, we concluded that about 44 of those would initially be considered acceptable for use. These were not on-site investigations. These were tabletop investigations based off permits, air photos, what other information?
Landowner records that we went through, just looking at the integrity of the pit, the banks, and what it looked like in general. So we came back with about 44 we think could be used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so we worked to create an estimate on about what the storage volume would be for those 44 facilities, and that would be 25.1 million gallons. So it's an interesting statistic. Again, this is just an estimate, but just for the sake of conversation, we wanted to know, is it even a number that is of importance, or is it a very minimal number? So it's something that we felt would be helpful to continue to keep in the conversation as well. And so, Matt, if you want to just explain a little bit with what each of these maps are looking at. Some of them were in your packet, and then we were able to put, at the end, we were able to put 1 or 2 more maps in there that we were able to put together since you got your packet.
So the first map we're looking at here is just the location of all the idle storages that we think could be potentially used. And we'll go to the next one. So with this one, it's the potential storages that could be used with a 1 mile buffer around it. And then with a 2 mile buffer around it. And then if we go to the next slide, this is the location of the Daily Hall Farms, in relationship to the manure storages. And then if we go to the next slide, this is with the 1 mile buffer. So you can see that, yes, some of them are within a mile of the storages, but others are outside of that area. So it's not gonna work for everybody, but it is something that could be used by some farms. If we go to the next slide, then we have the 2 mile buffer. That's getting a ways out to have to haul, but there is a fair amount of farms that are within that 2 mile buffer. I don't know what the exact percent is. We could do a little more analysis on that, but you can see that there's a number of them that do fall within that 2 mile buffer of those storages.
And one important item that we have not done yet, because we didn't feel like it's prudent, it's too early to do this, but we have not reached out to the folks that own the idle storages and said, hey, how you doing? Would you ever be interested in renting out this storage? So of course, we're just using this for the sake of conversation. We do not know who would be interested in that and who wouldn't. I think it's safe to assume that everyone would not say, sure, yes, absolutely. So we have to also take that into consideration as well. So just wanted to provide you all with this important piece of information that you requested from us last month. The other thing that you requested that we do is to continue to meet with various types of stakeholders from all different backgrounds in Marathon County. So you will find in your packet today that we did put letters in there from some of the groups that we've met with. We did not include in the packet letters from individual landowners, as that is typically the county policy to keep those out of a public packet. We did receive some of those. I will work with our director and corp counsel to find out what is appropriate to distribute that to you, and if we can do that and how to do that. But the letters from organizations you will find within your packet. We also received a letter of support late in the game here, just during yesterday's business day, from the Marathon County Chapter of Farmers Union that did not make it into the packet. Again, that is something that we can pass on to you as well. So we have been truly inundated with meetings, but we are happy to do so because we understand how important it is to receive community input. I think even just the amount of people that took the time out of their schedule to show up today is an example of what input can look like in a community that's engaged with what they care about. And we have had a lot of really meaningful conversations. I love how many new people I got to meet that I haven't got to meet in the last 3 years that I've been in my position. And it's obvious how passionate our community is about agriculture. And, being born and raised here in Marathon County ourselves, we understand and we're passionate about those things as well. And our conservationists in our department have devoted their lives and their careers to working with farmers. So we are filled with the desire to want to work and compromise together with our valued stakeholders in this county. So for many groups, we did hear common phrases of, wanting to do more, willingness to do more, a general concern for the quality of surface water in the majority of our county. We did, however, hear a lot of similar comments to what we heard today as well, in terms of let's take some time and work together to make sure it's a plan that will work for everyone. And so one really encouraging idea that came out of one of the open houses that we were at is some farmers had said, could we please form a work group and, take, we haven't thought it through yet, but maybe a couple hours a month, maybe one meeting a month to sit down at a table and talk through what this means to different types of farms, different sizes of farms, different ways that people are farming, and try to come up with those compromises. And so we also love that idea of having a work group. And so one request that we have for the committee today is to perhaps take a pause and allow us to form this work group with a variety of stakeholders, which we've done many times in the past. Some of you have even been on some of those work groups for example, our land and water plan. We always have a work group that we put together with people of all different backgrounds. So we would envision forming a similar type of work group and taking a couple months to kind of flush out some of these ideas, because we have gotten a lot of great ideas. Probably one of the most prominent ideas that has come forward in many meetings was the discussion of buffers. So John is in the back like, yes, John Kroll loves buffers. And so we were really encouraged by that. Of course, we love buffers as well. I feel like that's something that this entire county has agreed on at this point, is a general love of buffers. And so while we have been seeing more and more of those going along streams, it's certainly not enough due to just the sheer size of our county. And so what we would like to consider is perhaps offering that as some type of option within some type of game plan to reduce phosphorus runoff into surface waters. We don't really know what that looks like yet. In discussions, we've said things like, what if we did a 30 to 60 foot buffer? And by that, I mean perennial vegetation that's growing along a river or stream or wetland that is there to stop runoff from occurring. And it could likely be something that is very flexible. It wouldn't be a super prescriptive buffer. It could be different options. But it's something that many farms feel like is more feasible. We've also had a great response to more nutrient management planning as well. By digging through the data, it has been a little bit shocking how, some of the farms that we've talked with, some are not even familiar with what a nutrient management plan is. I've gotten quite a few calls with people just candidly asking, I hear you talking about nutrient management plans in meetings. What is that? I've kind of heard of that, but I don't really know what that is. And those have been wonderful conversations to just to engage in this dialogue is great. And it is worth the sacrifices that people are making to be here, to have these discussions, to have some discussions that maybe are a little bit uncomfortable. It is worth it because good things are happening in this county from us discussing this together. So I'm very encouraged by what we're hearing, but I think overall we're kind of learning it's going to take, some time to work through great ideas we're receiving, reaching more people than we have yet at this point, and perhaps coming up with game plans that tie in all these different wants and needs that different groups have. But generally speaking, there is a consensus that we can do something more to move forward together, and that's a wonderful place to be in. And I'm filled with gratitude for the people that have taken their time out of their schedules in the last month or two to have these meetings, leadership that's been willing to have these meetings with us, and people that have come forward willing to share their personal stories and opinions. It means a lot to us, so thank you.
Okay, so staff, is your presentation concluded then, right?
Yes, we kept
Okay.
things very brief.
So now I'm going to ask committee members questions about the presentation. Then I figure we would go into just general discussion. Okay, so first questions related to the presentation. Marilyn, you're up.
I have a question. If the ones that don't have as that many animals, if they would put in a buffer at their own cost, then would they still be able to do some land spreading? Because putting in a buffer, I think, would be much cheaper than having to do, all the manure pits and all the cement and everything else. Is that something to think about?
Yes. Yes. You're asking me or the committee? I say yes, Marilyn.
Okay, questions from the committee? Supervisor Kroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to continue holding this like a microphone just because I like I can move around in my wheelchair. But anyways, my question is, so it's great, all these discussions are happening, things are progressing forward with a lot of stakeholders. My question is, how far does this need to get pushed back for our end goal? 3 to 5 years is kind of our goal, but with many, every month we keep pushing back what that might look like. So what kind of timeline are you guys looking at with this?
Do you want me to start? Okay, Matt will likely have some thoughts to share too, but I'll start. I think if anything, if we move towards compromises that are more feasible monetarily and are more able to get quickly established, if anything, I feel the timeline could likely move up than 3 to 5 years. I feel like in our initial conversations, as a committee, we discussed such a generous timeline because we knew it could likely be a very big ask, and we did not want that, to have such as big of a financial impact on farms. So if we are moving to a much more feasible solution, I would believe that we would also generally be able to move up the timeline. Of course, those are discussions we can have. But that's my initial opinion, especially things like nutrient management. Like, we're ready to go today. Like, if someone calls me in an hour, we will sign you up for a nutrient management plan. So that's not something that needs to wait 3 to 5 years. Do you agree, Matt?
Yeah, and I agree with what Kirsty says. It really depends on when we have our meetings with our stakeholders and progress forward, what route we take and what's all in that, those revisions to the ordinance. If we're not getting into requiring farms, to have that ban in those months, then the other things I think are a lot more feasible to do.
Other questions? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Al.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, on the testing in the old plane, over the last, let's say, 20 years, has the problem gotten worse or has it gotten better?
That's a very generalized question. We're talking specifically about phosphorus?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Generally speaking, it has not changed a whole lot over the past 20 years. I mean, I would want to be looking directly at the data before giving you a more specific answer, but we have not seen, in the last probably 50 years, the needle has not been moved. That's why we keep using that phrase, because there's probably been slight changes,
Right, yeah.
especially seasonally, but there hasn't been anything that's been implemented to actually move the needle in water quality from where it's been for many years.
So if I may ask, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes, if there's less farms now than there was, am I correct?
There's less
And
farms,
be
same
less-
amount of
Less
livestock.
farms winter spreading, right, than there used to be? So shouldn't there be less down there if the winter spreading was going to solve this? Just asking.
I don't know if we've quantified if there's less farms winter spreading. To be honest with you, we still have, while we have some larger farms that are under CAFO rules that cannot winter spread, we do still have many farms in Marathon County who are very large farms, in the 900s animal units, but they still winter spread. So we do have a lot of our large farms winter spreading. The encouraging news about that is that many of them do have the storage to not have to spread during high risk periods. So we felt in many of our meetings that perhaps that is also something that we could agree on through a compromise, where, perhaps when there are farms that have storage available to them, that they should be using them during those high-risk periods. And that is not a point that came up in meetings with any stakeholders where, people felt like that would be a huge ask. So that may be another common point of unity that we can come together on.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, I had a question and a comment/question. So the map that we have up here with the 2-mile buffer, this is in regards to the storage units that we know are currently in the county, right?
This is the ones that we think could be potentially used by landowners these are the idle ones.
Yep. We know that they're all idle. We don't know if they're in good shape, right?
These we believe are in better shape, that
Okay.
they could be used. The other 50 odd storages, those are ones that we have questions and concerns about. The majority of these ones are actually permitted facilities. So we have design plans on them, they meet setbacks requirements.
And if we wanted, let's say that 6 of them out of the green spots up there do need some work, what are the options? Like, is there any cost sharing available for that? Is that all borne by the landowner that has that inactive site? I think I might have had this question last month. I don't know if I got it answered.
To me, that's a very difficult question to answer just because there's too many ifs.
Sure, and my thought was, I don't want it to be a situation where that property owner of the inactive site is just gonna push those costs onto the farmer that has to pay to use that site, because I don't think that's fair. And then my other comment was, we know that there's a lot of town roads, county roads out there that would be used now instead of the farms spraying manure on site, right? Because theoretically, they would be spreading it somewhere in their homestead compared to hauling it on a town or county road in order to go there. So that's just more of a general comment. I don't know if it's possible if we have future discussions, not necessarily with this 2-month ban, but with community ag groups and talking about impacts on transportation, that might be something to consider. So just a comment. So, all right. Any questions yet from the committee? Supervisor Drabek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, I like the idea of a work group, and I was just wondering who would be picking the people on there? And would this committee be, or who would be, and if we'd have some input on that? Thanks.
Yeah. I have honestly not thought that through, to tell you the truth. I have an ongoing list so far of folks that are interested in being on it. When anyone calls me regarding this, I ask them every single time, would you be interested in being in our work group? Unfortunately, so many farmers are so busy that they just don't have the time to leave. So we have promised to everyone that, as we have more, let's say we have 3 months of work group meetings, let's have another open house or something to talk about what the work group is talking about, get feedback, go back to work group if needed. So I promise to everyone that's calling to keep them in the loop regarding these opportunities to come together and hear what's going on. So at the open houses, I have gotten an ongoing list of people that are interested in a work group and then people that are calling. So it's probably, at this point, it's probably not a good enough representation of a variety of farms or different backgrounds. We also have some folks from our EPIC farmer-led group that have expressed some interest. So it's not a huge group of people so far. I probably have maybe a dozen people on a list, so we're certainly still looking for more people. I also know that, let's say if we have a group of 25 people in a work group, if we have a meeting, maybe high teens will show up, right? Because not everyone can make every meeting. So do you have any suggestions on how you would like us to bring the creation of a work group forward, or hold off on that?
Let's save that for discussion.
Sure.
Okay. So any other questions on the presentation? Okay, and you'll both be around for questions anyway, so, okay, thank you, Matt, thank you.
Oh, there's an online question.
Is it
Supervisor
from-
Dickinson was raising his hand. Shad said.
That's fine, Supervisor Dickinson, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank everybody for showing up. I've had discussions with step one of those persons.
Supervisor Dickinson? Hey, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay.
That's better. Oh, now it's worse.
It's better?
No, we think it might be feedback.
Hold on, what's that?
Supervisor just said to turn the volume off on your laptop. Maybe that'll fix it.
I'm going to try.
Okay. We'll wait here.
Is there a chat option? You could put it into chat on WebEx. I wonder if perhaps he could type it into the chat box on WebEx for us.
Let's give him just a minute, and then, that could be an alternative.
I don't want to hold up the meeting.
Supervisor Dickinson, I think there's a chat box on WebEx. You could type your question into the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll give you a second to type that in. And while Supervisor Dickinson's typing that in, any other questions from the committee? No? Okay. All right, we'll wait for the chat.
What is the time frame for the resolution, is the question. Oh, what is the time frame for resolution, is what he typed out.
I think he's probably referring to the ordinance or potential ordinance.
I think so.
Okay. Well, anybody like to take a stab at that?
Would you like us to?
Sure.
Okay, I mean,
I know
ultimately, it's the
There's literally
committee.
been no language drafted, but I
No,
mean.
no, yeah. To have an ordinance or final plan, he also explained.
so-
Yeah,
Yeah. Public comment open until April 1st.
okay, okay. So we did say we would keep public comment open till April 1st, although I think generally speaking, ERC meetings are always open for public comment. But regarding this specific proposal, we said until April 1st, so next month people could certainly come as well. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like we had a firm timeline on when we want to come together to have, we're in such early stages of discussions on this. I don't feel like we've gotten far enough to say we have a vision of having something come together in 6 months or anything like that. We've been spending probably 6 months, talking about something like this coming about, but I guess a lot of it depends on how long you would like a work group to meet. I think if we have a productive work group together, we can probably have something to propose again in the next, maybe 2 or 3 months, maybe 2 months. Hard to say.
Okay. Thank you for your question, Supervisor Dickinson. All right, I think we're going to move into discussion by the committee. Okay, so
Okay,
thank you,
thank you.
Matt. Thank you, Kirsty. All right. So anybody like to throw anything out for discussion to get started here? I think that we've heard a number of proposals from the community. One thing I'm going to ask staff is to compile all of the information that we've gotten from public comment, be it at this session or outside of the meeting, specifically the written comments that were submitted, like what we've received from Farm Bureau today. We'll compile that all together and we'll send that out to everybody. I think that's only fair to everybody who might be for or against the ban. I think that we should reapproach this in the sense that this isn't something that will necessarily lead to a ban, but it is something that we have to have a discussion on regarding water quality, okay? That's why I would echo Supervisor Drabeck's idea of a work group so that hopefully we can get people together and have these discussions and we can have an off-ramp here rather than, having a mandate, because as somebody said, one size fits all, people tend to not be a fan of that. So I'm going to throw those ideas out there for discussion. Anybody, feel free to jump in. Oh, Supervisor Schoenborn, go ahead.
My biggest thing is what I really take a look at. And for us, one gentleman did, through this discussion of what this is all about and the time frame and everything else, I feel that we're just barely grasping some of this knowledge. And like Supervisor Drabeck said, or whatever, a work group. For us to get a work group, I know we've been beating this very hard lately in the last couple months since I kind of joined. And I don't want to be optimistic here, but we really need to take a look at, feedback from farmers and I mean, I don't want to put the blame game on them or whatever. Also, my theory is on all this, whatever, for them to put a pit up or whatever, that's money out of their pocket. It's pretty expensive. Once we start figuring this all out, do clay and all this, if we do that, or concrete or whatever, it's such a large, how much are we really going to save doing all this? I mean, percentage-wise, my point I'm trying to say is, what are we really are we gonna get back? Are we still gonna have allergy coming into, well, I know we will, but I think we all really need to take a look at this, and, we need feedback from everybody. And it's, to make these decisions, they're huge decisions, and I don't want to, for us to dump, put the blame game on the farmer that's got a small farm or whatever, or there's mega farms out in Marathon County and don't want to push more on them, but the work group and get feedback from them. I mean, so that we can, and then let it go down the road. But, I mean, it's time after time after time. And that we discuss this, we have meetings and meetings, when are we going to hit the nail on the head and really trying to come up with solid answers. And I'm really thinking that, if we get a group of people and, try to work this out, or try, I mean, this could be long-term or it could be short-term. But my main thing is that I just feel that, that sometimes we're going in some of the wrong directions. I mean, we're suggesting this, but I mean, is that a solid answer? Thank you.
Other thoughts? Tom, go ahead.
I think Kirsty's idea of the buffers is a great one, and the nutrient management plan, if we can get closer to 100% adaptation for that, and following it is going to go a long way to reach our goals here. That's just a comment I have. Other than, you're right, I would like some time to read these comments before I make any more judgment.
Supervisor, I'm going to go Supervisor Drayback because I saw your hand first and Supervisor Kroll. So there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After all that, I don't think I remember my question. And I'm having issues remembering it, so I'll give it back to you in just a minute, okay?
All right, that's fine.
Thanks.
Supervisor Kroll, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about it in three themes. So what is our timeline? What is our goals of this? And then how does this impact the stakeholders? So as people have discussed here, I am all in favor of getting a work group together for all farmers, for stakeholders, for landowners and whatnot. Any information that they want to provide to anybody regarding this is going to be very helpful. But the thing that I'm really thinking about is the timeline and how can that impact a decision that the county chooses. So that's why I would be recommending to have over the course of over the spring and maybe the beginning of the summer to have these stakeholder groups. And then I think we need to make a decision by November for an ordinance. And the reasoning is because this is during budget season when we decide our budget. So if there's any fiscal responsibilities or actions we need to take as a board, those can be implemented during the budget process as well. So, thank you.
Thought came
Yeah,
back.
well, not the whole thought, but maybe some of it.
You got some.
You had to ask that again, didn't you? I guess I just wanted to ask the question from Kirsty there. How much testing, I know you test the old plane. How about the cricks? Every 2 miles are they tested? Are they tested how often? I'm just trying to figure out is there some farms that are polluting really bad and others that are not? I'd like to kind of.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's probably the case everywhere in Wisconsin, right? We received a grant from the Wisconsin DNR that we apply for every year to test the total phosphorus levels in 3 different locations in the Big Old Plain watershed. So one at the headwaters where it comes into Marathon County, closer to Taylor County, and then one in the middle of the watershed, and then close to the reservoir. WVIC does test the reservoir itself for phosphorus levels. We started testing to try to find hotspots, just like you're thinking of, to try to see, okay, where is this coming in from? Obviously, we know that the reservoir struggles with phosphorus loading, but are we still seeing high levels in all these tributaries leading to the reservoir? And what we see, it really, I think we talked about this very briefly the last month or two, but we are seeing a lot of variability in phosphorus levels. It's sometimes the phosphorus levels remain relatively stable. They're pretty much always consistently over the state standards for phosphorus. And there were several times over the last year or two where the phosphorus levels in those streams were just unbelievable, over 50 times higher than the state standard. So we are not testing enough points in the tributaries to identify a voluminous amount of hotspots. Part of that is just due to funding. To test one stream sample for total phosphorus, it's almost $75. And we do that every other week during the seasons where the water isn't frozen. So it is very expensive. If the county ever wanted to set aside funds for us to do more phosphorus testing in Marathon County, we would certainly be able to do it. But probably for the last almost decade, the DNR has really been cutting back on the funds that they have to do stream testing. So if we went back in time, even to the 90s, there was every single stream was tested probably monthly, and now all that data is just 30 years old. And if counties want fresh data, they have to go get it themselves. So that's what we're trying to do with the limited funds we have, and we do try to get all different parts of the watershed, but and that data is available to anyone that would like to see it. I know we've talked about it with the committee, but we're trying to gather it from various spots, but it's not really giving us a whole lot of clues to show that it's a certain part of the watershed more than another part, if that is helpful.
I have a question for you.
Hold on. Al, did you have a?
I had a different question, sort of.
Go ahead then, Marilyn.
There's a big old plane and the.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Marilyn. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
There's a big old plane and a little old plane. Do they end up in the same place? Because I know there's a spot in the town of Johnson where one way it goes to the big old plane and the other part goes to the little old plane reservoir. And the only reason I know is part of that is up off of one of the dead-end roads in the town of Johnson off of A.
Both of them end up in the Wisconsin River eventually.
But does say the little old plane, does that get all the pollution and stuff into the big old plane that you have? It does not.
No, the little old plane goes into the Mead, actually.
Okay, so it's about halfway eastern and western part of town of Johnson, where one goes to the little old plane, the other goes to the big old plane. Just a little bit of history of the town of Johnson.
Supervisor Drabek?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another question I had for the buffer strips. Okay, are CAFOs in that? Would they be under that ordinance or whatever as well, or?
Ultimately, it's up to our policymakers to decide that, but when we, amend our animal waste ordinance, it's county-wide, so it's not, if you didn't want to include CAFOs for some reason, you would specifically have to say that in the ordinance. So if we put into the ordinance that all, waterways in Marathon County have to have a 30 to 60-foot buffer, whatever, the width you decide on, then that would apply to everyone in Marathon
I thought they were under DNR control. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah. I mean, their farm facilities are, but if we did that, it would be on the land, which is not dependent on numbers of livestock. So,
Thank
does
you.
that make sense? Mm-hmm.
No, you're good. All right. So now my next question, as far as the work group is, I guess this would be directed toward administration and Corp Council. Have we had community work groups like this in the past, and do they have to be blessed by the board?
Yes, you have had work groups like this in the past. The special events 12.04 work group was one such a work group. That work group was not formally created by a body. It was formed by staff with specific community and county board representatives. If you do have one that is formally constituted by either ERC or another committee or the county board, that has to go through a formal process of approval at the county board level and then has to comply with Wisconsin open meetings law. So if it's a staff-led work group without a quorum of any committee, there's a little bit more flexibility on holding the meetings.
Yeah, that would be my preference. I don't want this to be, I don't want this to have to go through the bureaucracy of open meetings law and all that wonderful stuff. And I guess as far as having participants on the work group, Kirsty, I've got 8 people that might be interested right here, so, yeah. All right, other thoughts, comments, questions from this group? All right, so here's what I would like to see. I'm going to reiterate that what I've been saying for the last 2 months, I do not want to see a mandate. I do not want to see an outright ban for those 2 months. My position has not changed on that. I will say that I think that it is good to have collaboration amongst the community groups and get their input so that it can flow up to us, and as policymakers, we can put together a recommendation for the county board if there should be one. I think that what would be useful is if staff could treat this very similarly to that special events ordinance that we just updated, where we would essentially direct staff to reach out and talk with the community groups and have this informal committee to come up with recommendations for us to take a look at. It might not even necessarily have to be the adoption or amendment of any ordinance. It could be something that just requires outreach and education so that we can, encourage best practices within the county. Thoughts? Supervisor Draybeck.
Do you need a motion on that?
No, we're not going to do a motion because this wasn't noticed as an actionable item. I think this is just an update from the staff, and they'll continue with their work. Anything else? Otherwise, this will be on the agenda next month for staff to provide an update. Staff, do you have clarity?
Yes.
All right. All right, we're going to move on from 6A3. Thanks again to the public for coming in and providing your input. Welcome to stick around for the rest of the agenda if you want. All right. All right. We'll move on to item number 5. We got nothing. Actually, I'm going to try and be respectful to everybody. Supervisor Mask, did you just want to be here for the parks items, or do you want us to move it up? Okay, sounds good. So we're going to move on to B, review and possible recommendations to the county board for its consideration, town zoning changes pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 60.62 sub 3. B1, Town of Wausau, rezone of a 4.283 acre parcel from Town of Wausau zoning code. Chad, what's up?
All right, so first I just wanted to, never mind. I read it wrong on the agenda, but the first one is just the town rezone. Statutorily, the town of Wausau has their own zoning, but it still needs to be approved by the county board, in which it goes through this committee first. So essentially, they are rezoning a property from the commercial district and light manufacturing to an agricultural district. They did provide us with everything that we need, including the public notice, the map in which is being rezoned. It's just pending approval.
Any questions from the group? Otherwise, motion to approve would be in order. Supervisor Kroll?
I'm just curious the reason this doesn't need a public hearing.
So this is a town zone town. They hold the public hearing on their end. They did provide us notice that they had that public hearing, but then essentially it just requires the county board to have the final sign off on it. And part of that process is through this committee where you guys would approve it, then it goes to county board, and then gets approved at the county board level.
Yeah, it's a shorter answer. No offense, Chad.
Yeah, go for it.
They're not under county zoning. Yeah. Yep. All right. Other questions? If not, anybody would like to make a motion? Please do so. Not all at once now. Sure. Otherwise,
This here, right?
yeah, a motion to recommend approval to the county board, based on,
Motion to
staff
approve, yeah.
information, or something like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve the resolution R1 2025, I believe it's called here. Right? Do I have the right one?
Let's find out. I think it looks right. Oh, it's a resolution coming from the town. Just say approve, or recommend approval of the town of Wausau rezone, based on staff information. That's fine.
All right, I just make a motion to approve the rezone of the town of Wausau based on the information they gave us.
Sure.
Thank you.
Motion made, is there a second? Second by Supervisor Schoenborn. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Moving on to B2, Section 17.46, Commercial Light Manufacturing District to Section 17.45-1/80 Ag District. Chad.
Sorry, I believe that was part of number 1. There should only be 2 items in
okay.
there.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yep,
Okay, but we are on to this item B3 for the town of Wausau, right?
correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep, so the town of Wausau is amending their ordinance, their zoning ordinance, essentially adding a section for keeping of fowl in their R1/20 residential district and their ag transition district, which is AT1-40. Again, they provide us everything we need. They held the public hearing on their end, and it's just up for the committee's approval.
Any questions? Not, motion approved be in order. Supervisor Seifelt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to approve the town of Wausau creation of a new town zoning ordinance.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Drayback. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. We're on to C, review and possible recommendations to the county board for its consideration. 1, potential amendments to the Marathon County Code of Ordinances for chapters 16, 19, and sections 2.06, 7.125, and Wausau City Park subsection. Director Polly, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is being brought forward. Typically, each year, we look at all of our ordinances, work with our recreation deputies, and make any adjustments that they have. This year in particular, we approved the intergovernmental agreement finally with the city of Wausau for the joint department that we have and the joint services. And with that, we had to look at both the city of Wausau park codes and the Marathon County park codes to make sure like our name was consistent, the commission and committees were consistent in their name. So that's what this is really a cleanup of our ordinances. There were a couple of things in chapter 16 that we added. That's our county forest ordinance where we added some language that the recreation deputies suggested based on, items that are left in the county forest and when we can remove them. All of these county updates or ordinance updates were reviewed by Corporation Counsel. So we're just bringing them forward and I can answer any questions you might have.
I stepped out for a second there. I apologize. Did you provide a brief summary for these or?
Yep, they should be in your
Okay.
packet and they should be redlined, so you should be able to see all of the different changes in it. And just for information for those that haven't been or are aware of why we have the City of Wausau park codes in our county ordinances, it's because of the fact that we have recreation deputies that have the ability, this started way back in the day when we had rangers, and rangers were allowed to enforce city ordinances and county ordinance because the county has adopted the city ordinances. So we continue that even though we don't have park rangers anymore. We continue that for our AFMs that we have, which are assistant facility managers that can do violation notices as well as the recreation deputies. And now the city has also adopted anything that pertains to Marathon Park so that the city officers can enforce any Marathon Park county park rules within the city. So that's going to City Council next week for them to approve that.
Questions? Supervisor Kroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would any of this have to get amended if the agreement between the city and the county were severed or not renewed?
Yes, probably a lot of it would have to
Okay.
be amended.
I'm just thinking, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
specifically like the Park Commission. We have the Joint Park Commission based on the agreement of the 3 city council members, 3 county board members, so all of that would have to change.
Other questions? I did have one. I think it's page 37 of the packet, page 4 of the ordinance. For alcohol use, didn't we decide this last term?
No, the
No.
Park Commission didn't approve this last term. They wanted to see what happened. So this is based on the city of Wausau putting an ordinance in place for no drinking in their city parks before 4 PM. And that was done it went into effect last January of 24. The Park Commission chose not to put it on the 2 parks that are within the city of Wausau in 24, wanting to see what the outcome was, if it had any spillover from the city putting the ordinance in effect. And then we wanted to see if the city was going to renew it. It was just a year trial for that, and then it's sunsetted in December. The city has decided to continue that. It worked actually very well for the city. This doesn't prohibit anybody from having alcohol in the parks if they have a permit or a special event or an activity that's going on. It's really just more general use. So we haven't had any issues in the city. However, we did see the impact because of this ordinance, especially in Marathon Park. It took a while. We probably didn't see any impact of it until late July, August, when people realized that the county parks had different ordinances and the ability to really do and drink whenever. The Park Commission discussed this afternoon, so this is added in there. If they did recommend it to you for approval or to move it on. Had they not, I would have taken it out. But we did in the west side of Marathon Park by our shelter number 4, which is a hidden shelter kind of by the campground, is where we see the majority of issues there. Quite a large gathering towards the end of the summer with a lot of different issues that come along with it, different paraphernalia, litter, garbage, inappropriate behavior, that sort of thing. So
Has it helped law enforcement? I think that was one of the discussions that we had.
yeah,
right?
in the city it has. So it's made it a little difficult more on our recreation deputies in the county parks because we don't have we have other ordinance, like littering and stuff like that they can enforce, but nothing that would
Correspond to what the city
correspond
has
to
done?
this. Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there was a little bit of concern this afternoon about, what if I wanted to go and have lunch with a friend and sit at a picnic table and have a glass of wine or beer. This ordinance would affect that, but if you were going under a shelter, when we talked with our recreation deputies, if you're going under a shelter and it's not being used and it's being an event that's organized, because our shelters are first come, first serve, and it's considered an organized event even without a permit, they would allow that if it's underneath that organized activity that's within our shelters, that's open to the public to use. So they will have some discretion with this, but it will be enforced, and there will be some education with it.
Okay. Other questions? Supervisor Traybeck?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you're having a picnic on Saturday at noon, and you're in one of those shelters, you can drink, or you could have a beer there or something like that, is what you're trying to say, or?
Yep.
Am I understanding this
Yes,
right?
you are, yeah. So with any shelter reservation, special event permit, activity permit through our department, or in the campgrounds, that's not part of this ordinance either, that would all be allowed anytime.
So what if I just show up to have a picnic with my kids or something like that, or and we didn't really pre-plan it, we just stopped in to do it?
The way our deputies have looked at this is if you're within a shelter where it would be considered like a shelter reservation, even though they're first come, first serve. Well, they're not first come, first serve. Some of them are, and some of them are pre-reserved. But if you were within that shelter and it was considered within that footprint and it would be like a shelter reservation, then it would be okay. They would not enforce it as against the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
I'm fine with it as long as there's an option, and it sounds like there is, and if it can help cut down on problems that law enforcement is having, it's fine with me. So Other questions? All right, maybe I'd like to make a motion to approve these change, or recommend approval of these changes to the county board. Supervisor Seifelt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion for the amendment of the Marathon County Code of Ordinance on chapters 16 and 19, and for the city of Wausau City Parks too, so.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Kroll. Any further discussion? Supervisor Masters, did you have anything to add for this one? Okay. All right. Seeing there is no additional discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. We are on to item C2, consideration of resolution to the Wisconsin State Legislature and Governor Evers supporting the renewal of the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund. Director Polly.
Yes, I have a lot on your agenda tonight.
What's that?
Said I have a lot on your agenda tonight for the first time in a while. So this item is something we had received, well, we've been following the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program at the state for many years. Every time it's up for renewal, it's something that we watch closely. We have been asked by the Ice Age Trail Alliance to support the renewal of the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund. It's also something all of our associations and stuff that we are involved with, Wisconsin State Parks, our Wisconsin Parks and Recreation Association, County Forest Association is following. For us, I looked at, and in your packet is a printout. It's a very small print, but it's a printout, 4 pages worth of how many communities within the county have utilized the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program since it was put into effect in 1989. You'll see on that list that the majority of the communities within this county have received it at one point or another for something, whether it's land acquisition or the building of some sort of a natural area or trail facility. But it is countywide. It does affect everybody. We're not asking in this resolution for the county board to ask for a specific amount to be allocated or a specific time frame. Those are details that the state is working out. We're just asking the county board to show the support for the renewal of this program in some shape or fashion, because it is a benefit to every community within our county. To build trails, land acquisition, we use it very regularly for any county forest property that we might acquire. So the city of Wausau passed this in support of it and sent the letter today. And so we're just asking the county board to do the same thing. It should be a bipartisan fund. The name of it is named after 2 governors, one Democrat, one Republican. That was the whole point of the stewardship fund back when it was started. It has become a little bit political, so it is up for renewal next year, and it is in jeopardy at the moment. The governor did include it in his budget proposal for a $100 million renewal 10-year. Obviously, you know when his budget goes in, it's now going to be changed, so this is just showing that support.
And this is something that we've traditionally done in the past. So, any questions from the committee? Not, I'd certainly like to see this continue forward. Director Polly, has this been funded at a certain amount in the past, and did the governor provide a corresponding funding amount in his proposed budget?
It was, when it was originally put in, it was funded at a higher level. The last time it was renewed, it was reduced. I'd have to get the exact numbers out, but the governor's proposal is to bring it back up above what the original funding was because of the demand that it has shown over the years. So it is higher than original.
Sure. And it's also probably partly due to politics between the Republican-controlled legislature and the Democrat governor that, propose higher than what it ultimately ends up getting approved for, so.
Yeah, and there's different buckets within the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund that the ones we utilize are the ones that the County Forest Association can utilize for land acquisition, and then we have a local unit of government one. And then there's other buckets that are for the DNR and other things. So we're interested mainly in those 2.
Sure. Okay. Any questions, comments? All right. Anybody like to make a motion to recommend approval to the county board? Supervisor Seifelt? Our park guy, forestry guy, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. See, I am chair of the commission. I'll make a motion to consideration of the resolution to the Wisconsin State Legislator and Governor Evers to support the Knowles-Nell Stewardship Fund. Thank you.
Motion is made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Drabek. Any further discussion? Supervisor Mask, anything? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. We are on to consideration of allocation of funds for repairs to the ice arena consistent with previous direction from Park Commission relative to short-term repair strategy. Director Polly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I put in your packet kind of a brief memo of where we have been and where we are at with when it pertains to the ice arena. And this is where I believe Supervisor Mask is going to assist with some of the information coming from the Park Commission and really what the discussions were. But what we are looking at right now is we've been doing a study over the last couple of years, and I think I gave the county board an update on that of the ice arena's current condition, and knowing that it's a 50-year facility with failed infrastructure and failed mechanical pieces, because the mechanical part of it was even bought used in 1974, so it's older than 50 years. It's a heavily used facility that is very important to our community, not only just to the residents of Wausau, but all the members that come out from outside of Wausau to join those different groups, Wausau School District, our local economy, that sort of thing. So in this study, we're looking at a couple of options, but what we have come to really, what came to the forefront even faster than we had planned was the failed infrastructure of especially Rink 2, which is the newer of our two facilities, but that's still over 40 years old. This last year, we had significant leaks in the brine system that was coming out, which is essentially what freezes the ice. We were put 3 weeks back because we had to open up different areas of the rink and finally found the major break, very corroded infrastructure in there. So we did get it up and running with a lot of help from outside organizations and then our skilled staff of doing some bleeding to the lines, getting some new lines in certain areas. And luckily, we made it through the ice season. The ice came out today in Rink 2 because the end of the season was Sunday. So that rink, but the Park Commission has been talking about, for one, the short term, what do we do with Rink 2 to be able to have it operational for the 2025-26 season? And then the long-term option of what do we do with the rink in general? And that's where the study comes in. So what we're recommending, or what we have in front of you today, is the short-term plan. We don't have an allocation of where this funding would come from, but we're asking the county board, well, actually the HR Finance Committee, to allocate funding for the repairs to Rink 2. The amount that we have proposed in here is $940,000, and it seems like a very high amount, but the actual, if we were going to fix the rink, would be a couple of $1 million. So the short-term fix, what this $940,000 includes, is a mat system. So it's a mat system that will be laid over our current concrete rink. It will be tied into our existing refrigeration system, and then it can be taken out each year so that the fair can continue to use the building. It is still a seasonal rink. This 940 also includes any updates to the piping system that goes from Rink 2 into the refrigeration room, which are in desperate need of repair. We have one return valve that actually feeds both rinks that I think I showed pictures. I know I showed pictures of the Park Commission. I think I had them in when I did a presentation to the county board. If that were to burst, that would be significant to both facilities, take them both out, as well as it would be very dangerous because we use ammonia in the ice arena. So for safety, that also includes updates to our refrigeration room and the ammonia system, some required alarming systems that are in there for the ammonia, and some safety features when it comes to ammonia. It also includes a new cooling tower for the entire facility, which we were about to bring forward 2 years ago. We did some temporary repairs to it, but this would fix that. And then it would also from a different fund, we have to fix the dehumidification system in rank 2. Right now it is not operational and hasn't been all season. So with that, then as we move into the long-term fixes for the ice arena, the County Park Commission is recommending an option to repair our current rink 1, which is the main rink, home ice of most of our user groups, rebuilding that in its current location, repairing rink 2 in that time frame, and that's where Supervisor Mass can speak to the options that we talked about and why they're recommending that one versus maybe the one that would be more beneficial to the county. But that's a long-term plan, and that is different. I'll talk a little bit about that in the next item. But that's the long-term plan for the ice arena. So if we were to do the short-term plans, that mat system could be reused elsewhere or could be sold. So it is something that we could get a return back on in a couple of years if we were to actually go ahead and do replacement of our current ice arena. The chiller, the cooling tower that we would purchase would be new and could be put in a new facility as well, so that wouldn't go with just this temporary repair. So we're trying to make the repairs, even though they're temporary, as long-term as possible with whatever we do in the future. So that is that part of it and why this is being recommended. I guess if you want to add.
Thank you. I can't believe that our park department has been able to keep these facilities running the way they have. So I give you a lot of compliments to your abilities. And I've been a hockey mom for a very long time. My kids played hockey there in youth hockey, and they played in Mosinee, and they played for DC Evers High School. So I've been at that rink and the one in Mosinee and Tomahawk and all over a lot. And I think it's a real asset to our community. We had 4 choices of the type of facility. And of course, the very first one would be when the highway department moves, that would be a place where we could build a 12-month facility with 2 sheets of permanent ice, which would be ideal. And the things that we could do with having that kind of facility would be just phenomenal. However, talking everybody into affording it is not going to work. So we went through the other options, and we did settle on option 2, which is our best second choice, unless we can talk the county board into option 1. But ideally, I got some notes here. I'm tired. I've been in Wausau all day. Our user groups, we have to keep them in the facilities now. And these repairs that Jamie and the park department have recommended are really essential to keep these facilities running until we can come up with a permanent plan, whether we move, which would be the best, or if we stay there and redo and make some permanent ice in one of the sheets. So I really hope that you consider supporting this money. And I think that allocating this to the ice arenas are going to be, it shows up in the economic area. We get a lot of people coming in for tournaments, for the camps that they have. If we had permanent ice in the summertime that kids have, and the adult teams, if we had permanent ice, we could have people coming in all year long for different things, training and you name it. We could probably even upgrade from the Cyclones to a different level hockey team. It's just so many things that can be done, but it all brings stuff back to the county, to the community. So I really hope that you consider forwarding this to finance. And I think that this is money well spent.
Sure. Just kind of to frame up what I think Jamie and Supervisor Mask referenced, what's before you, I want to see if I'll reflect back what I understand to be the situation, just to hopefully, if nothing else, convince myself that I understand what the discussion is about. But suffice to say, the long-term decision that will ultimately be made by the county board is a big one with respect to ice. As Supervisor Mask referenced, we've had the benefit of these ice sheets in Marathon Park for a long time. And there are a lot of user groups within the county that make great use of them. That said, it is a fundamental question. I say this a lot during budget time, but I'll say it now. The county board is the ultimate arbiter of there's three policy questions, right? What services or programs do we deliver, which is really the core question here. It is not a mandated service. I'm going to say something you all know. Delivery of ice, that is to offer ice rentals and ice utilization, is not mandated. But as I said before, it's something that a lot of people have come to rely upon for more than half a century, or just about half a century. So that's the big question the county board needs to ultimately figure out, and you're not going to do that this month. There's no way the county board is going to make a decision on, as Supervisor Mask said, option 1, which is 2 new ice sheets, or an option 2, which is essentially one new ice sheet with a significant renovation, or option 3, which is keep them there. That's a very detailed, long conversation. So the task that staff was given by the Park Commission was, this is me reflecting back, kind of characterizing it, but what option for the short term continues to afford us the opportunity to deliver ice to these user groups that is also the most flexible for that long-term solution, or that long-term decision that has to be made. So if the county board says, hey, we're going to get out of the ice business, do we have a short-term solution? What's that short-term solution that's the most flexible for that? Or if they say, hey, we're going to build brand new 2 ice sheets, what's the most flexible short-term solution if they go that route? Or if they go kind of the middle ground of that 1 new ice sheet and 1 renovated, what is the most flexible short-term solution there? So that's where staff are the how people, right? The elected bodies, the policy bodies direct us, hey, these are the goals we want to accomplish. Staff we put our thinking caps on and we figure out how can we meet that deliverable. So Jamie and her team were given that task by Park Commission. They had a lot of meetings, and I was involved in a couple of conversations even. What is that flexible? What is the most flexible? And Jamie laid it out. We would make certain renovations to some core infrastructure, cooling infrastructure. Then we would have a mat system, so it goes on top of the concrete rather than ripping all the concrete out in rink 2 and fixing the pipes and laying concrete back over the top. It's, hey, what's flexible, not as expensive, at least in the short term, is the mat system. Ties into our existing cooling system once we've repaired it. That mat system, if you get out of the ice business, you can sell it, or you could use it for something else. In the original, or the most recent update to the West Side Master Plan, there's a skating ribbon. You could use it for that. Or what if you want to stay in the ice business? Well, you could use that mat system for that. So it's flexible in that respect. Similarly, with regard to some of that infrastructure that Jamie referenced in her memo, the cooling tower and the dehumidification system, if you get out of the ice business, you could have the opportunity to theoretically sell those things. Or they would be useful moving forward if you stayed in the ice business. So this is, I don't think I'm overstating this. This is the product on the staff side of a lot of thought about how to be as flexible as possible, meeting the deliverables set by the policymakers. In this instance, it was the Park Commission. Hey, we want a solution that, regardless of what the county board decides with regard to that threshold long-term policy decision about what to do with the ice arenas, that works best for Marathon County and mitigates risk. So that is the proposal that's in front of you. It certainly is not inexpensive, but, and Jamie can answer these questions better than I, but the mat system itself is a pretty significant portion of that. That cooling tower and that dehumidification system. Again, those are the areas of flexibility. That core infrastructure, that feed line, that we got to fix. If it fails, we would be in significant problems. So that's the staff side. I want to be very clear. This isn't staff saying, hey, this is what you need to do. It's a option that, credit to the Park Commission, they laid out, these are the goals. Staff, go put your thinking caps on, and I think we've done that well. But that's my overview of what's before you. If you want to move it forward, I think to Jamie's point, there's not a funding source identified in here. HR Finance has historically served as the body to say, hey, some other committee wants to do something. How do we pay for it? Where do we want to tap into for funding? HR Finance would be where you would send it for that sort of determination. But Jamie can answer all of the technical questions. I think I've laid out from a very, very high level, kind of where you're at.
Yeah, thank you, staff, and thank you, Supervisor Mask. When I saw the $900,000, it gave me some anxiety, but I will say this: if we don't approve of this short-term fix, that area is just going to be shot, and there's going to be no value in it at all. If we want to have discussions about the long-term future of the county in ICE, I think we need to do that after we get the short-term fix done. As far as the long-term, I haven't changed my policy position that we need to reevaluate the county's relationship with ICE. I haven't thought on that, one person got it. Thank you. But that discussion comes later. We have to do a short-term fix now to get this done so that we don't have any more risk for the users that want to operate in Marathon Park. So I would recommend approval given that information. So, Supervisor Seefeld?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to speak about this too, but it sounds like everybody got ahead of me here, and I do agree with the short term right now, but in the long term, down the road, is to fix the 2 floors and maybe have one I think it was ring 1 for year-round ice, or was it 2? Ring 1 for year-round ice down the road, but ideally it would be nice to have a new facility, but right now this is not going to happen. So
yeah, that discussion, that decision comes later, and I
so
think that's.
I just hope this committee supports sending this to HR Finance, and hopefully we can get this through. So thank you.
Supervisor Drayback and then Supervisor Kroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Say, Jamie, I was just wondering about how long this temporary fix is expected to last.
Well, it can, the lifespan of the MAT system is just about 10 years. That's if it's in place. We'll be taking it in and out each year, so it might reduce it a little bit. We're hoping, though, that we have a plan for a long-term within the next year, and then something built maybe within 4 or 5 years on a long-term. I mean, the sooner we can get it done, the better, knowing our age of our current infrastructure. But this temporary fix would last us between 8 and 10 years if we can keep it. Typically you put it in and you leave it, but we're going to be rolling it up every year, so that's where it may reduce the lifespan a little bit. But 10 years is about what they're supposed to last.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Kroll.
I had the same question.
Oh, perfect. Well, and Director Polly, did you address the resale aspect of this with the MAT? Did you bring that up?
I did, and then, yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
The MAT system? Well, the MAT system itself is about $150,000, and then with it comes all the piping that needs to get done and the chiller system. So, it's not a significant resale value, but it would.
There's some
recovery. Yeah.
Well, that's my biggest concern with this is that if you just let, and I'm not directing this comment at staff or anybody in particular, but if you let that decay, then we don't have anything.
Right.
So, Marilyn, you had something.
Do we know how long some of the other ones might stay in the business? What other ones have the ice rings, and do we know how long they might be available for the Wausau Metropolitan Marathon County area?
Well, right now, the current ice rinks in our area are our two sheets. DC Everest has one, Mosinee has one, Merrill has one, and then you go down to Stevens Point, they have a city one and then a youth one. However, we're all at capacity, so there isn't available, if we were not to have ice for our many users, they really don't have anywhere else to go at the moment, because Everest is booked, Merrill is booked, that's kind of where they go between. But all of them are fairly aged too. I mean, Everest ice rink was built, I won't date myself, but the year I graduated high school, which is almost 30 years ago. So it's, I mean, the rinks are older in general in the area, but there isn't, if we were not to offer ice for our three high school teams, our three high school teams, our youth hockey, our Cyclones, NH3L, our Timberline figure skating, and all of the youth that use it, we need to give them significant notice so that there is something, I mean, someone would have to build something somewhere else.
My question again, are they municipal or are they school-related ice facilities?
One is school, the other two, Mosinee and Merrill, are municipal, and then ours is county. So.
Everest, Kresge, are any of those year-round?
Everest is year-round, yes.
Everest
That's
is
the only one year-round.
But that's the
in
only
area.
one?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and the one thing about Everest too is it is an Olympic size sheet, which to most of you isn't, but most of ours are NHL size. So Olympic sizes, they're larger. The ice is kept a little softer because it's more for figure skating. Hockey does use it, but it's something that our youth organizations, if anyone were to build a new one, it would be NHL size.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Supervisor Jay, I feel bad. Is it Shaneborn or Schoenborn? Shaneborn? Supervisor Shaneborn.
These repairs need to be made. I mean, is it this coming summer?
Yes, so the temporary repairs we hope to make this year before we put ice in late September. So our window most likely would be the weeks after the fair, just because there's lead time on the mat system itself. Could be up to 8 weeks, and even if we get it ordered in the next couple of weeks, we're looking at midsummer. Takes about 5 weeks for all the repairs, and that's a really tight time frame before the fair. So, yeah, we would do it after the fair is the plan.
Other comments, questions? All right, anybody like to make a motion? Supervisor Seefeld?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to consider for the ice arena for short-term repair and move this would have to be moved on to HR Finance, correct? Do I need that in the motion?
It wouldn't have to, but since you don't have a funding source identified, it would make a lot of sense to do that. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Well, motion's been made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Shaneborn. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. We are on to C4, which I think is also Director Polly, and I think this goes to, speaks to the long-term fix, right? Is what you're saying? Yeah, so go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So currently, the city, or the county, I have to get my mind straight, the county is working under a FEMA brick grant for the feasibility side of the ice arena. So we received that last year, $375,000 to do this feasibility study and figuring out what are the best long-term fix. And with that, if we can include a safe room for the community in there. So FEMA has been looking at communities to provide these larger shelter facilities, and they're willing to give a significant amount of funding towards the construction of those facilities if a community can do it. The closest one to us is Stratford, I believe, is the community that just recently put a safe room in their gymnasium that they added to their school. So it was a project that we did, and so the next step in that is to apply for the funding of the construction side of it. The Park Commission gave permission to me to submit a pre-application in January. The sub-application for this was was due on Friday, this last Friday. And with that, it asks for the funding of the safe room portion is what they would potentially fund. This is a letter that is needed to go with the grant that has the county support coming up with the 25% local match if you are awarded the grant. What this letter is not, it is not you agreeing to accept the grant if you get it. It's not you agreeing to any type of funding at this time, because we don't know what the grant award would be. But the grant match is a 75-25. So at the moment, the current amount that we have submitted for the usable space, there's a whole calculation that had to go into it, is $9.7 million towards the ice arena. That would be the safe room portion. If we're awarded the whole amount, then there would be 25% of that would be a county match. And that county match doesn't mean necessarily dollars. It could be in-kind services, it can be donations, sponsorships, stuff like that. So similar to the grant we have. So all this letter is doing is to saying that the county board would say that if you receive the grant and you accept the grant, that 25% would be borne by the county. So we're just asking you to forward this on to county board for approval for the county board chair or appropriate government official to sign that letter stating that.
Questions, comments? I would strongly recommend to this committee to forward this on and recommend approval, because here's the thing. Whenever we get to that long-term discussion, if you're somebody that wants the county to stay in the ice business, you're going to have to identify several streams of funding to get this done. Because I don't think we're in an era where we can just rely on the tax levy to pay for the entire thing. We're going to have to look to grants. We're going to have to look at community support. I'm reminded of the North Central Healthcare Pool from a number of years ago, where there was community donations provided in order to provide updates to that facility. I think it's going to have to be the exact same thing for something like this if it's ever going to get done for the long term. As Director Polly said, there's no, it sounds like there's no commitment that if we do get selected for this, that we're obligated to immediately do it. This gives you a lot of flexibility in the long run if you think that's a priority for the county. So those are my thoughts. Questions, comments? Not, would someone like to make a motion? Supervisor Seafeld, you're popular today. There you go.
Well, it has a lot to do with me, so. I'll make a motion to submit the letter of commitment for grant March funding for supporting building for infrastructure and community use.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Drabek. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. D, we've got nothing. 6, okay. It is 5 o'clock. We've been here for a couple hours. I am going to suggest that we take just a very short break here and reconvene at 10 after 5. We do have one more longer topic to deal with, and I want to get us out of here before the weather gets any worse. But I also know that we want to be respectful of Kevin and Kirsty's time today. So let's break until 10 after 5. We'll reconvene and we'll finish off the agenda for today. We'll still have
Marilyn, can we,
How you doing, Lionel? I'm doing good. How are you?